It is that time again. It is time for Fun Game Friday, an event I do on my Twitch channel where the first Friday of every month I play a brand new game that I've never played before, and Kat gets to join me on the journey of figuring out, do I like this game? For this Fun Game Friday, the game that I chose was MapleStory. I know it's a bit of an older game, but I've heard so many good things about it and I just had to try it for myself. When I opened the game, one of the first things I had to do was create my character. Honestly, I was so excited for that part because I love character customization, but it did not live up to my expectations. We'll get to that though. I'm gonna need you to bear with me on this resolution, okay? Getting this game to actually be full screen took quite a while. I don't know if it's just the game or if I was being silly and missed something. It does get full screen later, I promise. I went straight into character selection, which I believe was kind of just choosing my class and abilities, but if I paid attention correctly, I think it might affect the lore and the story you play through, but just don't take my word on that because I only played for a couple of hours. Anyways, I ended up settling on Angelic Buster because frankly, so cute, and of course, looked like a magic class. In any game that I have a choice of going magic, I always do. Then I went into the actual character customization, which had two faces, two hairs, and hair colors that did not match the color squares, which was really, really underwhelming. But when I was done with that, I saw this pop up for key type settings, and this is when I realized that MapleStory wasn't even remotely similar to any of the games I played. The secondary key setting at least had WASD on it, so I thought I would go with that. Turns out it did not help me nearly as much as I thought it would. Then started the game, which, if I'm being totally honest, was so much story. My personal preference for games is lots of things to do where I learn the story along the way. So starting the game off with story, and more story did not set a good mood for the rest of my playtime, and continued to try and resize the window with no success, but I gave up and I continued the story, which was made so much more annoying by this damn next button moving with every new dialogue. Like, why? Just find one spot to put it in. So much talking. I think people who play games purely for story would enjoy that part, but I totally fall asleep when my games just make me read a whole book just to understand what's going on in the world. I skipped a bit, but for summary, the three of us that were talking went to go defend a temple that was protecting a magical cube that kind of protects all of the lands, and the cube ended up morphing into a bracelet and sticking itself on my wrist, which also happens to contain a dragon spirit for some reason. Don't get mad at me for not understanding, please. I know my attention span is non-existent. I put on a little concert before my new dragon friend slash pet slash mentor tried to desperately explain any of this UI that contains my abilities and skills and so on. If it wasn't obvious already, he failed miserably. I cannot understand any of this, but luckily that had no effect on how I was able to play the game. This was me trying to figure out how the hell the controls in this game work by pressing all of the usual buttons I use in quite literally every other game I've ever touched, which just solidified that, again, this game is completely different from any game I have ever played in my entire life. It felt like all the intuition I had and knowledge from other games was entirely useless while exploring this game. I tried to see if there were settings to adjust, to simply move all of the keybinds and make it so that I can move in a different way and bind abilities to different buttons, but I couldn't. And I couldn't decide if this was the best key binding menu of all time or the worst, but probably with how many functions they have in this game, it might be safe to say best. Either way, I couldn't make anything easier for myself, so I caved and I just went back to the game where they conveniently had these massive arrows above my head telling me exactly where to go that I just didn't see for like 20 minutes. Like a good YouTuber, I cut all that out so you didn't have to see me struggle for a prolonged period of time. But man, did I feel silly when I finally noticed. I followed the arrows to the quest where I talked to this old priest lady that I think might have known me my whole life. But like a wise old lady, she saw through my superstar disguise almost immediately. She was actually super cool about the fact that I randomly turned into a super power wielding superstar and told me I should talk to the general so I can contribute to society for once in my life. But the funny thing is, after she told me that, I had to talk to her again before talking to the general, and I didn't realize that. So instead, I ran around like a maniac. I ended up finding this like free marketplace. There wasn't anything to do here, but you know, exploring and stuff. Before I talked to the general, I wanted to stimulate my brain at least a little bit, so I found these cute mushroom guys or something. That was fun. However, I didn't realize that you need to press a button in order to pick up the items, so I ended up spending time and energy on these mushroom guys and getting quite literally nothing out of it. Kind of embarrassing to come to that realization later. Finally, I realized that I had to talk to the priestess again, so I did that, and I was so happy because after I did that, the arrows came back. I was really happy to see that the arrows were back after having been lost for so long. I quickly followed them to finally speak with the general, who then proceeded to order me to resource gathering instead of fighting. What do you mean your soldiers need to be trusted and trained? Huh? Generals are so stingy these days. Delivering the resources was quick and easy once I learned the button to pick up items, and in true main character fashion, I went to harass the general again and demand that I go punch some faces in. Thankfully, he agreed to let me get my violent tendencies out of my system, but only gave me 20 minutes to do so, which actually scared me until I released all the rage from my childhood in the span of 15 seconds, including reading the dialogue. I complained to the general for giving me a task that didn't live up to my main character potential, so he gave me a new, supposedly harder task. I followed the arrows but tunnel visioned on fighting cute mushroom guys because this violence was the only thing that made me feel something. It took me going into the wrong portal to realize that fighting small cute things that can't fight back wasn't my real mission here. I found my way to the correct place and got distracted by even cuter, even more helpless things that I could harvest for money. To be honest, that also wasn't the mission, but I blacked out from boredom, so I don't remember what was. More yapping with the general occurred before I set off to meet with priest number 1 and priest number 2 about how safe they were, but then, not the priest, but I got jumped. So like a good main character, I pretended it was entirely intentional to get information from the enemies. I did get a chance to redeem myself with another 20 minutes to, for some reason, beat up this feeble old man. After I did that, I entered the most fun mini game within this game, clicking a button. I did it twice. It was glorious. After I played my games, this handsome stud showed up, then immediately disappeared, which was disappointing. My friend got beat up by the handsome stud, so I went to make sure that he was okay, even though this friend is a total jerk. He has been a total jerk the entire story, so I don't know why we're still friends with him, but in true jerk fashion, he was mean and bitter the entire time. I was trying to make sure he was okay. After so much dialogue, I decided to unwind by punching cute things again. This time, with the power of the knowledge of how to pick up items, I actually got paid for committing such atrocities. My next mission, I guess, was teleporting to a completely different planet. I don't know how all these places established interplanetary travel with no regulations, but questioning that is above my pay grade. I traveled to this new world, and it's okay, I guess, but look at this cute shark. This cute shark made my day. I had a conversation with this beautiful elf lady in a mushroom house, and it was saddening how long it took me to escape from this mushroom house. Then I ran around like the little explorer I am, talking to people and attempting to collect quests like I do in all of my favorite games. Ended up in probably the 5th new place, where some puppies and other animals were, multiple of which wanted to talk to me. Props to them though, because I, for one, never want to speak to strangers. Ever. At this point, I was blindly bored, but reluctantly decided to collect some wrecked supplies for a penguin or something. I think that's a penguin. After doing all of these things, I somehow took 2 hours, and I was very, very done. In all honesty, I absolutely hated playing MapleStory, which was really disappointing because of how many good things I have heard about this game. But at the end of the day, that's totally okay. You know why? Because the point of Fun Game Friday isn't playing tons of games that I know I'll love and be obsessed with. It's trying new games I know nothing about and forcing me to step outside of my comfort zone and try things I never would have tried otherwise. If you have recommendations for the next Fun Game Friday, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and I will see you next month. Or maybe I'll see you on Twitch during the weeks before then.